Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Conversations in Pop Culture, where I have with me professional wrestler Kaia McKenna. So, welcome to the show because I'm super excited. Super excited.
Thank you so much for having me this evening. Sure, it'll be fun to talk.
Yeah, I'm excited because there's a lot of stuff going on with you, and I'm sure we're going to get into a bunch of it. But you are fairly new to wrestling still. You're very green, and I say that out of a place of respect, as in like you just came in 2020. So I am curious, and I know you probably answered this before, but how did you get into wrestling?
I mean, I think I have a similar introduction to wrestling that a lot of people do. I watched it growing up as a kid with my family, and I always enjoyed it. My mom would like take us to wrestling shows, like smaller shows, house shows, you name it. Nothing too big. I'm kind of from the middle of nowhere, so everything we attended was small. But yeah, it was just like something we all enjoyed together as a family. Like my grandma liked wrestling, my aunt likes wrestling. Like that's where the love comes from. As I started to become a teenager and I realized the indies exist, I got into independent wrestling. As far as getting involved in wrestling, when I was growing up, wrestling seemed very like pie in the sky. Like it wasn't like, how do you even become a wrestler? Like, what is this? Because people like Hulk Hogan and Shawn Michaels felt like superheroes or like massive celebrities. It wasn't like today where people are super accessible through Twitter, right? So I was just like, oh man, how do you even do that? I don't even know. And then I got a little bit older and I had a little bit of time and I had some stability in my life. So I decided to pursue professional wrestling because why not? I've always wanted to do it and it's been a blast. It's the best decision I ever made.
And yeah, because obviously that happened. And how did you even go about finding a wrestling school to train at? Because you trained at the Black and Brave Wrestling Academy. Obviously, that's run by Seth Rollins, Maverick Brave or Marek Brave. And so, how did that all come about? Because that's a very interesting thing. I think that's in what, Iowa, I want to say.
Davenport, Iowa. Um, so when I started getting involved in wrestling, the first thing I did, like, and this was like 2 years before I was just kind of going was helping out at like small local indies, like setting up chairs, doing ring crew, just kind of meeting people in like my local scene and seeing what the deal was. Cause it's like, you don't really know. Like there's not like a book that's like, here's how to be a wrestler, right? So I thought that was a good spot to start. And it really was because I met some people, I made some friends. I got to like get in rings, take a couple of bumps, like see if I really wanted to do it or not, right? It wasn't like a shock to me. Oh, okay. I think I really do want to do this. Like this is fun. It's great. I had a friend who had a wrestling ring in his backyard, and that's where I started, like actually physically wrestling. And after about a year of that, I was like, okay, if I really want to take this seriously and I really want to make a career out of this and become successful, I need to go to wrestling school, like a real wrestling school. Wrestling in a backyard's a blast, but it is not a real wrestling school. And I was like, well, I did the numbers because I live on the East Coast and there are a lot of good schools that are central to where I live. But when I was crunching numbers on it, it's like the amount of time that I would have had to spend sitting in traffic, driving to these places from where I live, the gas, the wear and tear on my car, just generally working and then being dog ass tired from all of the formerly stated things. It just made more sense to why not just go to the best place possible, stay there 3 months, get it done right, get it done from the best in the world, and then hit the ground running. And that's what kind of led me to make the decision to apply to that school. Not only that it was the best, but it was also the fastest, most direct route to get me to my goal.
So, obviously, you come into this, you pick up, you're down there for 3 months. I think you came in late December, early January of 2020,
January,
around there.
yeah, I was in winter 2020.
And then obviously, how is your training broken up? Because there's three aspects of wrestling, I think at least, and correct me if I'm wrong. There's the physical side of wrestling, there's the mental side of wrestling, and then there's the psychological side of wrestling. And so what was that like coming into this school and learning that and breaking that stuff down? Because obviously, you're at one of the best wrestling schools out there, run by top people down there, and you're figuring out all this stuff, and it's probably really intense for 3 months.
It is very intense. It's a very, very difficult program and a very, very difficult school, and it's not for everyone. But that's sometimes we do things in this world we realize it's not for us. The good thing is it was for me. So I just being there is great. it's very, very interesting how much of a science that both Rollins and Merrick have this down to. Like, they know exactly what they need to teach us in the time frame that they have us, the order in which they need to teach it, and how to cover all of the bases. And because between them, they just have so much experience, whether it be working on the indies, working on TV, like traveling, doing promo, like all the different characters both of them have portrayed throughout their careers. Like, there's so many buckets for them to dip into and share that knowledge with us as students. And you just feel so grateful to have such good mentors and coaches, especially like coaches that want you to do well, and you know that's why they're hard on you. If you're struggling, like, they're so great. Like, they can watch you do something and correct you immediately and help you get to where you need to be. It's just, I could not have asked for a better experience when it comes to wrestling school, and I'm so grateful to have excellent coaches.
And then obviously, even going further into that, because you're down there, and obviously, you're going through this in 3 months, and obviously, some people go to wrestling school and they're constantly training, and they're always training. And what is that like to really have that all drilled into you? Because there is a real advantage to having it done at such a high speed, and getting that fun, I guess, foundation being built really quickly. It's kind of like building a house really quickly, where it's just you got to do it, and then if you're doing it wrong, you're corrected immediately, and then you don't make that mistake ever again.
Well, that's not to say you don't make that mistake ever again, because there is a massive learning curve with professional wrestling, and it's impossible to learn everything about this business in 3 months, whether it be in-ring, psychology, like the marketing aspect of it. You cannot learn it all in 3 months. I'm sure there are people that have been wrestling 15 years and they still don't feel like they have a grasp on everything. But, you're going to have hard days. You're going to have days where you feel like it's a lot, where you're tired, where you're beaten up, you're bruised, you're bloody. You don't want to be there, but you have to just push through. You have to dig deep and remember that you're not there to be average. You're there because you want to be great. And that takes time, and it takes discipline. And the best thing anybody can do in that particular situation is just maximize the time that you're out there and don't take it for granted. Like, I would go to open ring every day and try to get better at something I was bad at, or I would ask questions. I would take notes every class, because you're not going to remember everything all this knowledge that they dump on you. There's no possible way to remember all of it. So it's just being smart about it, and just, like I said, maximizing your time and making the most out of the opportunity.
And then to even build off of this, because obviously you're down there 3 months, super intense, taking advantage of it, obviously doing as much as you can, open ring, going in the ring, getting extra time in, obviously figuring out all that stuff. And then you sort of March hits, and I guess you're at the end of your training period. COVID just hit, Mania gets canceled, and what was that like going through? Because probably in March, COVID was starting to hit, and what was it like down in Iowa? What was it like affecting your training and all that stuff? Because that's sort of what happened, and then by pretty much the third week in March, the U.S. was shut down for the most part all over the place.
So it was definitely a the end, because we didn't know if they were going to shut everything down or not. It literally was right on that timeline. So we did what people who are dedicated hard workers do, and they're just hey, we got to get through this. We did 2 classes a day for the last 2.5 weeks, and which that is it's already intense, but it's that's a whole kicking it up a whole nother notch, right? But you want to get it done, and you're not going to let it stop you. So we did that, and the biggest change for me is getting through it, going from wrestling 6 to 7 hours a day, 3 to 4 days a week, and having this state-of-the-art wrestling facility and gym right across the street, to returning back to Washington, D.C., where I did not have that. And everything had been shut down. So it was you're riding this super, super high wave of excitement and confidence, and then you get back to reality. I hate to say reality, because the reality is now.
And even to talk about that, because obviously you're going at such a high speed, velocity, and probably what you had in mind, and I think a lot of people coming out of this, it's sort of you go through this 3 months, and then you're not perfect in the ring, and obviously you got to get matches, but you sort of expect to be shot out of a cannon and hit the ground running out of this training in a lot of ways. And then when COVID hits, you're now back in DC. Nobody knows what the hell COVID is. You might have been even concerned down in Iowa, saying, "Hey, how are we going to do this?" And then what was that like? Because it's it wasn't a gradual like switch off. It was hit the brakes and everything is just stopped coming off of high velocity.
Well, here's the thing is obviously you have to have 2 weeks to cry about it and eat ice cream because it sucks. At the end of the day, it sucks. You're all excited. You're ready to have your first match. You're rocking and rolling. And that doesn't happen. And it doesn't happen for me for like 5 months because everything was completely shut down. But you have to remember that there are many aspects to being a professional wrestler. It's not just what you're doing physically in the ring, and you don't have to physically be in the ring to improve as a performer. So I spent a lot of that time between March and July when I had my first match, continuing to go and do what I could at the gym or doing exercises at home, working on gear design, working on merch design, working on what type of look I wanted to have, how I wanted to present myself to fans, like maybe even something as simple as spending an hour figuring out how I'm going to enter the ring. Like there's so many aspects to this. And sometimes when things aren't favorable, you've got to focus on what's in your control, what's not in your control. I can't control COVID or shows being available to book me, but I can control other aspects of my performer. So that's where I put my.
And even to talk about that, because I think a lot of people don't understand about wrestling and even other aspects. I just had somebody who's a comic artist, is a lot of stuff beyond just what you're doing on the surface. There's a lot of stuff that goes into it. And being a wrestler, obviously training, understanding things, merch design, even saying, hey, where do I want to wrestle? Where can I wrestle? I mean, that's a big question, what is actually feasible? Because it's cool if, somebody wants to fly you out to Cali and then fly you, to St. Louis and then bring you into Beyond. But also at a certain point, you can't be going to Beyond on a Friday and then fly into California, for Sunday and then get back and then also have a day job. And then because there's logistics and even figuring that out or figuring out, hey, what promotions are really, friendly, or where are these promotions? How far are they? Because going to Jersey, for instance, from DC isn't bad. But going to, Chicago from DC, it's not exactly the easiest drive. And so there's a lot of stuff going into that. And it's very interesting that you sort of whined about it for 2 weeks is a good way to put it, and we're upset about it. But then you said, okay, let me figure out sort of a battle plan with that.
Yeah, I mean, life goes on. I like to think of having a career in professional wrestling as playing a game of chess. You want to take the king being I would assume most people, their goal is to end up on TV, right? We'll just leave that as a blanket statement because there are many options these days. But if that's your goal, right? Be successful, make money doing wrestling, be on TV with a major company. You want to position yourself the best possible way to get there. So all of that does come into play. Like, you don't want to get stuck only being on the East Coast. You want to make sure you get to the Midwest, that you get to the West, that you get to the South, that you go to Texas, that you go to all these different places and you get to wrestle in front of different crowds and different people. And because that's such a good experience to have, like, you got to get out of your fishbowl. The other thing is like being just smart about where you work and where you spend your time. You can literally spend 10 years working the same 3 indies that are all within 2.5 hours from your house, but that's not going to elevate you and move you up the ladder or get you any closer, right? So it's just like trying to figure out like what your plan of attack is, like making good choices, like making strategic choices, making choices that are good for you, because choices that are good for you might not be what's good for other people, and vice versa. One of the most interesting things in wrestling is if you were to take like the top 10 wrestlers like in WWE and AEW and just sit them all down, right, at a round table and ask them all their story, it's going to be different. Like, nobody had the same journey. Everybody came from different backgrounds and everybody had a different strategy in getting to where they wanted to be. I would say the only common factor you're going to find is that all of these people are very driven, disciplined individuals that knew what they wanted out of this and kept their eyes on the prize. So I just try to keep my eyes on my prize and make the best moves possible to get me there as quickly as possible and seamlessly as possible.
So it's so interesting you bring that up, because I come from the indie comic world. A lot of my guests are indie comic writers, indie artists, and then some people coming out of mainstream. And, I have discussions, and if you took, some of the next crop of kids who are killing it on the indies, all of them got into this in a different way. Some got in on a mainstream and then dropped down to indie. Some got into indie and are sort of climbing the ladder. Obviously the guy who did the AEW book is an indie guy, Dirk Manning. and with that did really well on Kickstarter. And so it's very interesting. So obviously everybody has a different story, but all these people have very similar, I guess, commonalities of what they want and what they're trying to achieve and even what they're doing. And a lot of it goes down to marketing, which is what it sounds like. And obviously I can tell you have a marketing background, whether it's by hard knocks or just figuring things out. But
I do graphic design as my day job, so I do work in a marketing environment, and that has certainly helped me in my career, being able to design my gear, design my merch, like not having to outsource that. Also, just like in general, like having a good feel for social media, how to manipulate those platforms, and why it's important to engage with your followers or your fans. Like, I'm very grateful for my experiences in marketing outside of wrestling, because it's certainly helped me at least put together the pieces of that part of the puzzle.
And so the reason why I bring this up is because it goes back to the idea that I feel that a lot of things in society, it's not necessarily the product, because the product that you're producing is wrestling, but it's how you market it. And it's very interesting because I think a lot of wrestlers don't understand that. And I think it's so interesting that you have a feel for it and that you position yourself and it's sort of working in a lot of ways. And that and obviously I'm sure you wanted to hit the ground running. But the fact that you had time to actually figure out more of a marketing plan and then figure out saying, hey, I can do A, B, C, and D, and this is going to position me into a better spot, it's very, very helpful in a lot of ways.
Well, honestly, I hate to say, like, you can teach anybody to wrestle, but really, realistically, WWE can hire any D1 football player and teach them how to wrestle. Like, they have a whole system for that. What you can't necessarily teach people is an understanding of psychology, or the ability to have a personality that resonates with fans, or even the most simplest form of storytelling in the ring, right? Like,
I'll give you one better than that. You can't teach somebody how to show up on time.
Well, that's just life in general. So, I mean, I don't know.
No, but I bring it up for a very good reason, where professionalism, you can't teach people how to be professional. And in wrestling, it's called professional wrestling. It's not called wrestling. And so it's very interesting where there are people who are in WWE, and the reason why they're in there is they are not good wrestlers, but they are professional. And there are people who make really good money who have less talent than some other people on that roster, but because they're professional, they know how to do things. They know how to actually act appropriately with fans. And they know how to, look good on TV. They know how to do certain things, be outside of the ring. And it's a big deal. And when, even in the indies, I had Delmy and Rip on, their promotion is definitely everybody who's involved in their new promotion is professional. Mm-hmm. And that's who's getting into their promotion. It's not just talent-based alone. And it's a very important thing to understand. And I think that that's something that, WWE doesn't exactly teach that, but the guys who make it to the top, they have that aspect. It's a commonality.
Yeah. We're definitely taught that when I went to wrestling school. Rollins is obviously a top guy, and he didn't get there by not working hard and not having an understanding of the business. He gets it. He knows how it works more so than I think a lot of people give him credit for. And he definitely bestowed that knowledge upon us. And like I said, going back to just storytelling, right? Like, giving people a reason to give a shit about what you're doing in the ring, or giving them something to feel like they're a part of, like, or that they want to see what happens next, or even for the time that you're out there, like, you're doing something that's different, that has their attention, that they didn't get in the last 3 matches, and that's the thing, is like, you can be like the most athletically gifted professional wrestler in the world and not be interesting at all. Like, and it's sad, but it's very true. And I've always personally preferred wrestlers that are very, very good at telling these stories and keeping me entertained, as well as being incredible, phenomenal athletes. So that's why I try to emulate that with my own gimmick. I love the idea of being this good witch and everyone's along for the ride.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that, especially with Camp Leapfrog, but I do want to talk about a little bit of July, because Camp Leapfrog, little spoiler, is amazing storytelling. It's amazing storytelling, and it's just a great page out of storytelling for those who are really interested. But I do want to talk about TCW.
Okay.
And so obviously, this is super cool. So this is Titan Championship Wrestling, and I think this is one of your earlier matches that you've had against Debbie Kane. Obviously, this is in Jersey,
I believe that was
and
the first match ever.
I don't know exactly. Some matches disappear with people. Cage match, as I've learned, is not the 100% accurate thing it should be. So I'm always treading lightly here. I don't want egg on my face to put it nicely.
First two against Debbie at Titan Championship Wrestling. Yes, fresh out of wrestling.
Yeah, except it was delayed by what, like 6 months or 5 months?
4 months.
Clearly, I'm not a math guy. Just because I can balance my checkbook doesn't mean that I know how to add. So how did you get into Titan Championship Wrestling? Because obviously pandemic hits, wrestling is shut down, some promotions are opening, every promotion has a weird way of doing things because of safety issues, things are fluctuating, there's different parameters in different states. Obviously, certain shows can run on a boardwalk, certain shows could have limited capacity, no capacity, all sorts of stuff. So how did that all come about?
So this is another one of those things of why it's so important to network with ring crew and professional wrestling. A lot of people, when the pandemic hit, had no idea how to get themselves booked, and they didn't have any idea how independent wrestling worked. So you just got out of wrestling school, and now you have to solve the puzzle of the indies. But the cool thing is, because I did so much legwork prior to going to wrestling school, I actually knew a couple people from my area, and I just kind of rode up with them once or twice and helped Titan set their ring up, and just met some people there, and they were nice enough to extend an opportunity to me. So it does pay off. Sometimes you got to go more than once, but that's kind of how I fell into that situation.
So sometimes just offering to help somebody leads to something else, and it's crazy that obviously in my world I'm providing a service where I'm saying, hey, want us an interview, and everybody needs media, and then all of a sudden it leads to one thing leads to another, or even just printing out flyers or anything like that. That's always helpful. So obviously, then that's sort of how that came about, right?
Yeah, that's how I've gotten a lot of opportunity, honestly, is just by paying a little bit of dues here and there. And the interesting thing is, so maybe you'll go one place and pay dues with the hopes of getting in at that place, but while you're paying dues there, you meet promoters from other places or people from other places, and you might not get the opportunity at the place you helped out, but guess what? You got opportunities at other places through the people you met while you were helping out. So you can't pigeonhole yourself or box yourself in. You don't want to ever be closed-minded, restrict your opportunities that way.
And so obviously we're going to talk about ring crew, but I know everybody asks you about it, so I want to avoid it as much as possible. I want to be different here. I want to be the standout.
I've been doing
we're actually a wrestling show. We're a wrestling show. We're not, in a pop culture show. We're not a ring crew show.
I appreciate that. I always appreciate people acknowledging the hard work that I'm putting in. So, but I also appreciate people actually asking me about my wrestling and not how many chairs I set up at a specific show.
I can tell you how I found about you and ring crew, but that's a different discussion. So okay. There's a great shot at one of the GCW events where you're just sort of in there watching it and sort of moving chairs around. That's getting a little chaotic.
Oh, yeah. See, and I couldn't even tell you what specific event that is because every event there has just been absolutely insane lately. So it could have been less.
But we're getting ahead of ourselves here.
Okay.
We're getting ahead of ourselves here. It's at least better than giving Larry Legend a heart attack. That's a great story with Gary J, but that's a different discussion also. But anyhow, so obviously you come and you're wrestling Debbie Kane. And what was this like? Because this is your first match, your first, I guess, professional match on the indie tour and indie career-wise, straight out of wrestling school. And so what were you feeling coming into this? Obviously, it's COVID. It's a very different environment than probably what you were expecting. And what was that like, sort of getting the first one done?
I mean, obviously you have that brief moment where you're like, "Ooh, okay, I've been training for this for however many months or years you've been training at that point," and you're nervous. But then you also have to remember that you're very good at what you do, and it's going to be a great experience no matter how it goes. You're going to learn from it, and you're ready for it. Your coaches have given you their blessing to go out into the world and wrestle, which they would not do if they did not believe in you and think you could do it. So you just have to remind yourself of all of those things. And you're standing there, but once you go out to have that match, it's left behind. You're just in wrestling mode, right? So as nerve-wracking as it was, it was a good experience to have, and I'm glad I had that experience, because it was also the experience that made me go, I can do this. You always question yourself when you're learning, right? Like, you're like, well, I don't really know. Well, I don't really know. And then you go out there and you do it, and you get a confidence boost off of that, no matter how the match goes, right? It reassures you and makes you feel like, okay, you know what? I think we're going to be all right. And to me, that was the best feeling in the world, was just being able to kind of rip the Band-Aid off and know that everything was going to be okay.
And so obviously, I don't remember, was this in front of a crowd, or was no crowd, or was it a limited capacity? Because obviously I sort of forget, because everything blends together now.
It was limited capacity, and it was outdoors. So I think they had everybody kind of social distanced. Some people pulled their cars up. But it was real small. It was just when they finally started allowing gatherings again, but they had to be outdoors.
Yeah, and this is going to become relevant in a second why I asked that, because then obviously, I forgot who won that match, but then you guys had a rematch, the two of you, a little bit later.
She cheated and won the first encounter, but I came prepared the second time and pulled out.
So talking about stories with that, is that obviously it's your first match, she cheats, and then you feel, slighted, and then obviously you're now coming back and sort of finishing out the feud, and now it's becoming a little bit more of a feud. And so what was this like, having that story being told for the next outing, and having that built in, and obviously being prepared? And obviously I think this one also had people there. And so what was that like? Because it's kind of fun when you get to wrestle the same person again.
Well, it's kind of fun to wrestle the same person multiple times, because that's how you tell a good story, and that's how you build, and you get to learn more about the person, how they work, and you guys can put together better matches and just kind of do something really, really cool. I mean, God knows how many times at this point in history Roman Reigns has wrestled John Cena, but they've made it great for us every time. So I think that that's an important lesson to learn too as a wrestler, is how to work with people multiple times, potentially back to back to back, because not every match you have is going to be a one-off, one and done. So it was cool to have that experience. And you have an opponent that cheats, like, the first thing you want to do is make sure you know how they cheated, and you don't let that happen again. You got to learn from your mistakes, or they're going to repeat themselves, right? So when I went into that rematch, I was like, all right, I'm going to take care of business today. I'm going to come out the gate super hot. I'm not going to give her the opportunity to even think about potentially. She's just not going to be able to keep up today. And you strategize and you rise above.
And then obviously this happened, and then the big thing that I think a lot of people started getting to know you from beyond ring crew, we're going to talk about ring crew, I promise everybody, is Camp Leapfrog. And so, what?
I love Camp Leapfrog. It's so fun. I love that it's very campy and literally campy, but it is campy, very tongue-in-cheek, and it's cheeky, and it's storytelling, and there's great wrestling. Like, there are
what I love about Camp Leapfrog, and I'm about to get slightly, controversial / dirty word, is that obviously Chikara had their problems, and a lot of people who are in Camp Leapfrog, and I think it's safe to acknowledge this, worked for Chikara, and then Camp Leapfrog popped up, and Chikara was providing a lot of work for a lot of wrestlers, and a lot of wrestlers sort of got a job and got to sort of step outside and sort of do some stuff. And it was very important, I think, from a business standpoint, that Camp Leapfrog continued the good aspects of that, and also helped to provide another, event for wrestlers to be involved in, another, opportunity, not to mention that it's super, super cool with cinematic wrestling and the cheekiness. And so obviously, how did you come in to Camp Leapfrog? Because you weren't part of the Chikara group that came in.
I was not part of the Chikara group, but Camp Leapfrog is the brainchild of referee Chris Levin, who's the senior official at GCW and has worked many other places in wrestling, probably every place at this point in time. He's an amazing.
He's great. He's been on, and he's great. He's absolutely wonderful. He's a saint.
He's a great business mind. He's a great wrestling mind, and he's a great creative mind. So this is like his little pet project. And from being friends with Chris, the invitation was extended to me. Like, he's like, "Hey, we're doing this wrestling summer camp. If you want to come by, please come by." So I was like, oh, okay, cool. I'll check that out. I'll come support you. You're my friend. So that's kind of how I fell into it. And then just like I ended up having a character that worked really, really well for Camp Leap Frog, and just kind of snowballed from there. But yeah, it did kind of create this nice little new home for a lot of people who maybe felt a little homeless after everything. Chikara. So I think that that's really cool, and it's a great part of the healing process for them, and it shows them that they can stand on their own 2 feet and they can continue to move on and grow as performers themselves, and they don't have to be defined by this one thing. So I'm really glad that Camp Leapfrog offers that for people.
Well. In Camp Leapfrog and me, I'm with the goons on this one. So me and Killian are like that. So it's all understand. I'm very upset about the last episode.
Almost sending the entire camp to hell last October. I don't think I'm still not forgiving him for that. Oh my gosh.
And so having backing out of Killian for a second, I'm required to say that me and Killian want to have a tag match at one point, and our third partner, where we're not going to talk, but he's comic oriented for lack of a better word, and we're going to make it happen. And then we're going to take all the King of Trios, all of it, Christmas Trios. It's coming. Me, Killian, and a mystery partner. But anyhow, you obviously have had a bunch of matches in Camp Leapfrog. You were part of the swimming pool battle royale.
I have not had a match at Camp Leapfrog since February, interestingly enough. I really hope I get to return soon because I miss Camp Leapfrog a lot. But yes, I had a couple matches there.
So obviously, one of the fun things about Camp Leapfrog is that these matches are, it's obviously swimming pool matches type stuff and battle royales. And you also have the monster battle royale where things go bump in the night. And that was crazy. And obviously even the lead up to that where people are like turning into werewolves and all sorts of stuff. And everybody was involved in that match. Legitimately everybody was involved in that match. People who, I don't even know who they are, were involved in that match.
The Camp Leapfrog draws a lot of inspiration from like old school lucha libre, where it was a lot of multi-mans, a lot of tags, a lot of atomicos, a lot of super libre, like crazy rumbles, a lot of stuff that you're not necessarily getting in other mainstream wrestling promotions that are usually just two dudes having a singles match. So I really love that Camp Leapfrog leans into that aesthetic a little bit.
There was like 42 people in that battle royale. It was insane, and then obviously. And also what was cool about that battle royale is that you literally had a bunch of different styles in there. So you had something like Big Calyx in there, and then you also had Max Zero in there, and then you had Ryan and Nova in there, and then you had just like a bunch of other people that like I don't even know who they are, and which is really not great. And I'm not thrilled that I don't know, but like there are people that I've never seen wrestle and have been around for like 3-4 years, and then obviously what is that like? Because then bunch of people are coming to the ring, it's chaotic, and then you win it.
I mean, I don't know. I did what had to be done. Amasis had to go back to hell. I was best equipped to do it. I do have G powers. But it was kind of fun to kind of lead the charge of all these badass women cleaning house toward the end segment. Because, I'm all about some lady power and some divine feminine energy.
And then also, this is sort of where the witch came into play a little bit, because obviously there's some magic in there. And then obviously, what was that like? Even just getting to do that, because this is obviously a cinematic, match, and it's sort of filmed, and you get to do cool stuff like that with it. So
I love that. I love stuff like that. I think that one of the cool things that reemerged during the pandemic era of wrestling across all promotions was the leaning into cinematic matches and CGI and post-production, and having a little bit of fun with it, because you didn't physically have people there to bluff. There was nobody there to say or not say that I do not actually have the ability to shoot fireballs and lightning out of my hands. The world may never know. But I love the idea of doing cinematics and telling these larger than life stories, and because I can't do that in front of a crowd. Like I can't just use the force and throw somebody out of a ring. Like, that's a big ask of the fans to suspend their disbelief to that extent. But I love that we can do stuff like that at Camp Leapfrog, and I loved seeing like even on WWE them leaning into that a little bit with the Fiend and Alexa Bliss and like that mystique, that like magical otherworldly thing. So yeah, it's been real fun. I'm always excited when I get to be at Camp Leapfrog and show off how powerful my powers really are.
And then also one of the things about Camp Leapfrog is that you're all campers. And
Yeah.
some of you are counselors, and that's also something that's sort of cool. Where obviously, I love the movie Meatballs. Obviously, I love Wet Hot American Summer, and it's kind of cool to the fact that all of you are campers, and it works in such a great way. And it's really just a brilliant setup. And I mean, me and Big Dust were speaking about this and how it could work Camp Leapfrog in front of an audience. And obviously, it's going to be very interesting when that happens and when that comes back. But it is super cool to be in your own universe because that's something that Camp Leapfrog does really well, where, other wrestling promotions are in the real world. This is in its own world in a lot of ways and allows for a lot of cool stuff. And it's also going back to that cinematic thing. And I feel, and Chris put it really well. He said, this is the type of thing you can roll up a joint with and just chill out and relax and watch Camp Leapfrog. I said to Chris, this is the type of thing where I can pour myself a nice glass of whiskey and I can just sip it nice and easy for 2.5 hours and chill out.
Yeah, it's definitely meant to be a lot more light and a lot more just enjoyable to watch. I think that we're kind of in a position where wrestling's very oversaturated right now. Like there's wrestling every night.
Very.
When I was growing up, you waited all week for Monday. Like it was like, come on, Monday. But now it's like wrestling's on every night. And then like IWTV has wrestling on every night, like multiple shows, like shows from all different parts of the country. And it's all, and it's like, pardon me?
From all over the world.
Yeah, no, 100%. I forgot they have like Zona and stuff on there too now, right?
It's crazy. It's insane.
But it's like, how do you stand out? Like, how do you differentiate yourself from this product that is oversaturated with a lot of the same stuff? And I think that Camp Leapfrog does that really, really well by just being different and just being itself, like, and not trying to be anything it's not, right? So yeah, I really hope that it keeps growing. We did just recently have a show in front of a live crowd for Abby Jane's 21st birthday party. And we did it as a double header with the IWTV 100 show. And it went really, really well. The fans got to come be campers for a day. And it was very, very lighthearted and it was fun. It was a great day of wrestling. And I think everybody went into the second show very relaxed because they had such an enjoyable daytime show with us.
Until Wheeler, Yuta, and Daniel Garcia burned the thing down with an amazing match.
It was an excellent match. Oh my goodness. It was probably 90 degrees in that building. There was not a lot of air moving.
Both those guys are just sick. They are just sick in the ring. And it is unbelievable what those guys can do.
It's so incredible. And how they're both just like so young and such masters of their craft at this point. Right, like, and to see a display of wrestling like that was.
I say this about Daniel Garcia. Daniel Garcia will say, "I am the best wrestler." And if you say to Daniel Garcia, "You're the best wrestler in the world," he'll say, "Yes, I am the best wrestler in the world." And there's no question that he's in that upper echelon right now. No question.
Absolutely.
He can back it up, which is crazy. And then Wheeler Yuta, just heel mode Yuta is sick. Is phenomenal. I love Wheeler Yuta as a heel.
I just enjoy his gimmick in general because there's not a lot of people doing anything like what he's doing, being a technical wrestler, calling himself the Decoder, having this like cyberpunk vibe to his physical appearance. It's just so evolved beyond anything else that's happening right now. And I just love to see how it all ties together every time he steps in the ring.
But enough about that. Getting back to Camp Leapfrog, because one of the fun things that also happened was, Christmas trios. And obviously, I like trios matches. I enjoy them. I think they're a lot more interesting than traditional tag matches. Obviously, I like the Goons. So I'm required to say that. By Killian McMurphy. He may or may not have dirt on me. And it might be a blue furry rat, but that's a different discussion. But what was this like? Because this show was a lot of fun. And obviously, Christmas last year in 2020 was really rough for a lot of people. And so because this show came out, I know it was filmed a little bit before Christmas, but what was it like to really have that show drop at a time that was not a great time for a lot of people? Because it really helped a lot of people, including myself.
So we came up with the idea for this show when we were riding out to the Collective in Indiana. Like we were driving overnight and it was like 4 a.m. and like everybody in the car was asleep except for like Chris and I. And we were just kind of talking about Camp Leapfrog and where it was going to go next, and like some of his ideas he had floating around. And it like, what kind of made me want to do a tag tournament, like, Chikara did King of Trios, like what if we did something like that? And then I was like, oh, we should do Christmas trios, right? And then it just snowballed from there, and we just thought of all of the amazing talent we have and all the fun little teams that could be put together to put on an incredible show, and how it would be like not totally copying the idea or like mimicking it, but like creating this new thing that was so important to a lot of our roster and giving it like new life, right? So I'm glad that show was a blast. That was really fun. There were some really interesting teams put together on that show. I teamed with Crusher and Erica Lee. The Goons knocked us out, unfortunately, but it was still just such a fun experience to have. Yeah, I loved Christmas Trios. I believe we're going to hopefully have that again this year. And maybe you'll bring your team, and maybe you'll win, or you'll get kicked out in the first round. Who knows?
I don't know. Our third member is going to be very, very interesting, and me and Killian need to talk about it, and it'll make everybody upset with us, and then we'll do something probably locally. I'll tell you after off air. I don't know. I'm gonna have to run it by Chris probably. Hopefully we can get it done. It'll be amazing, and I'm not a wrestler, which is gonna make this even more interesting. But anyhow, and obviously, I thoroughly enjoyed Christmas Trios. I enjoyed the entire show, and I loved the fact that there was some magic and there was all this cool stuff going on with it, and it was fantastic. And then obviously, even going further into this, obviously Camp Love Frog was great too, and I love the B-52s. I think obviously I'm probably the only person who would say that. Love Shack is an amazing song in so many ways, and I've been playing it all day last night, because it gets stuck in your head, and I love it. I would love to drive a Chrysler, but that's not the point here. So what was that match like with Ryan Nova? Because it was a loser pays for dinner, and Ryan Nova is just one of those guys that's so good.
That was, to me proving a point that I didn't need no man. I didn't need his money, especially not after how disrespectful he was to me on that date. Oh my goodness. Yes, that was all about proving a point. I was definitely going to come out on top of that one. I was a witch on a mission that day.
And one of the things that I like about it, though, is that it was really, really, really funny. What was going on, and it was brilliant because the match actually meant something. And then that's something that was fun about it. It's obviously Valentine's Day and everything's going on, and it was a fun show in general. But then, it was funny in a lot of ways, and I just thought it was a great, great story being told with that between the two of you and what was going on and all that, and who pays for dinner and all that stuff. So, because that's what makes somebody interested in a wrestling match. Like, I felt like I was compelled to say, okay, how's this going to end? Because
there's purpose. It's not just two people going out and wrestling.
We have a problem, is what it was. And then we're getting to the solution, and then there's the outcome. So it's kind of like the problem's here, the solution's here, wrestling's here. And it makes sense, and it's boxed, and it's easy for me to follow that I now have something to watch, and this was a hell of a lot better than NXT that night.
Well, thank you. But yeah, like I said, circling back, I stressed earlier in the interview the importance of storytelling, and I think that this is a great opportunity for both of us to tell a story. And it was something that actually Ryan Mooney had a lot of input in himself. He's a great creative mind. He's an excellent wrestler. He was wonderful to work with in that aspect. And I'm so glad that we could leave you all sports entertained with our little segment. Maybe we'll revisit it at Love Frog this year.
And also something about Ryan Nova that obviously he has some connections to Ring of Honor, and obviously he, is very, very, very intelligent.
Well, maybe we'll run it back at Love Frog this next year and see if he's learned any manners between now and then. How does that sound?
And apparently he still doesn't know where his wallet is. But I could say that because he admitted it legitly like last, I think, March or April. So he's openly admitted it that he doesn't know where his wallet is still to this day. So I could say that without getting into too much trouble. And so obviously that, and I just love that fact. And then obviously, even going further into Camp Leapfrog, one of the things that just happens, obviously, Abby Jane's 21st birthday just occurred, and well, you're sort of out with an injury. And you're getting back into wrestling, but you're taking it nice and slow. And so I think you were doing a lot of commentary. And so what was that like? Because commentary is a beast in and of itself.
Well, yeah, I feel like it's a lot of people just write a lot of stuff off in wrestling as being easy when it isn't. And commentary is very, very difficult. And I kind of knew that going into it just from having spoken to some of my friends in wrestling who do commentary regularly. So I just figured I was going to do the best I could. And I don't think I did bad. I had a really good time. It was a great learning experience. I do not think I am a master star commentator by any stretch of the imagination, but it was a very enjoyable experience. I got to call alongside Anthony.
Yeah.
He was incredible. I got a lot of good advice from Sydney Bacabella, who calls for Beyond, MLJ, who calls for GCW, Alyssa Marino, who's called commentary and matches all over the place. So just having some good advice from some good people definitely made it a lot easier.
To even talk about that, because obviously, I had Earl Joseph on, I think is his name, from New Wave Pro. And or Jensen, man, his name is slipping me again for like the 9th time. But one of the things is that you're a wrestler, so obviously, what was that like? Because it probably gives you a different perspective, and you're seeing it, but you're also responding to it, and you have to, sort of call a comment on it, talk about some other stuff, give some insight, and I would imagine that it changes the way you view wrestling a little bit, because obviously, me as a podcaster changes the way I view things as a fan. Where I was obviously a fan before all this, and I've been doing this now for almost 8 years, and wrestling sort of ruined a little bit for me because I'm actually analyzing people's matches and having conversations about this stuff. And so I'd imagine as a commentator, to some degree, it gives you a bit of a different perspective.
It does. The important thing to remember when you're doing commentary is it's actually not about you. It's not your match. You're not in the ring. You are there to help the people in the ring tell their story to the fans and the viewers. So when you look at it from that standpoint, like, it's your opinion doesn't matter too much. You really want to call the match right in the middle and add in information about the performers that's going to help fans understand why they're doing what they're doing. Whether it be notes about what their gimmick is or moves they do, just those small little tidbits that they can't necessarily.
Or what Sydney Bacabella does is that sometimes he sides with the heel to help the heel get over even further, and that's very helpful because if, I'll give a great example, Richard Holiday's in the ring. Sydney might say, I didn't see him cheating. I don't know what you're talking about. Paul, I don't know what you're talking about. And obviously he says it in the Sydney Bacabella way, or when a very good professional wrestler's doing it, he's obviously on the heel side of things, that's something that, he might sort of say, I didn't see anything wrong with that. What are you talking about? I didn't see any cheating.
Well, like I said, it's all about you're there to help tell the story, right? It's not necessarily about you. It's about how can you tell this story or help to tell this story that's occurring in the ring. So, yeah, sometimes the way to do that is one commentator takes the side of the heel and the other one takes the side of the face, and it makes for some very entertaining banter, but also, again, helps the fans and the viewers to understand what's happening in the ring on a level that they might not get if they didn't have commentary reinforcing it. So commentary is super important, especially
it's unbelievable important.
Like especially someone like me, where it's like I'm very gimmick heavy, and I would like to think that it's a pretty quick read what's going on, but maybe it's not. And it's important that commentary helps me get over. And
I was at a seminar with Bryce Remensburg from AEW for non-wrestlers. So this was at a Flying V show down in Maryland. And this was at Maryland's Homecoming. Of all places, they had a wrestling show. So now one of the things that's super important about commentary is that when you come out, Sydney Bacabella has to believe you're a witch. Yeah. Because if he doesn't believe you're a witch, he doesn't have to believe you're a good witch. He has to believe you're a witch. Especially if he's playing the heel, he could say, but he has to believe it. And that's super important about commentary, is that you, as a commentator, you have to believe in whatever's going on. Like, I have to believe, if I'm commentating a very good professional wrestler's wrestling, I have to believe he's a very good professional wrestler. Like, I have to believe that, when Big Calix is wrestling, I have to believe Big Calix is the biggest man in the ring. Like, and so it's very important, and you could sense when it's genuine and when it's not.
No, 100%. You definitely can. It was just all in all, it was a great experience to have, but I can't wait to be back in the ring. I am hoping to be back in the ring on 8/22 for WWR Plus's Say You'll Be There show. It's running as a doubleheader with American Rana on the 21st or the 26th.
Which will be better than SummerSlam. So
Yeah.
get your tickets now.
I believe it's sold out. I don't know. There may still be some tickets. You can message them. They might let you in if you ask really nicely. But yes, I'm so looking forward to my comeback. I've been training very, very hard for it.
So let's talk a little bit about that, because obviously one of the things that's super cool, and I think it's a little funny, is that you're supposed to be in the Super 8, and obviously injury hits. But now I'm going to explain why I bring this up. So they obviously, the Super 8 needs somebody with a headdress, and you obviously have one. So they got Megan Bain.
A hot tag to Megan. There we go. We're good.
So obviously that problem was solved. So us as fans didn't suffer tremendously here. But what was that like, you being invited to the Super 8? Because it's a big deal. And it's been the year of indie in the Super 8, like extensive indie, new coming indie, people who really deserve opportunities. Obviously, I know you don't like the Goons, but Killian won the men's Super 8, and Megan Bain won the women's Super 8, and it really is sort of the year of upcoming and well-deserved talent that have been doing this and haven't been getting an opportunity. So what was that like, just being invited in and even witnessing it and seeing where women's wrestling is going? Because it's a big deal right now.
I mean, honestly, it's a huge honor. It's something I've always wanted to do. I've been a pro wrestling fan for a long, long time. I've been an independent wrestling fan for a long, long time. And I've watched the Super 8 many, many times throughout the course of my professional wrestling fandom and career. So to be invited into it was an absolute honor. And I was very, very happy about it and so excited. And if you will not believe how crushed I was when I had to pull off. It was absolutely devastating. I felt like I had been working my ass off for an entire year to have this opportunity, and it was taken away from me in 3 seconds. And it was the worst feeling you could imagine. There's no other way to describe it other than it utterly and completely sucks. There's nothing anybody can say to me about it that's going to make me feel better about it. And I'm very happy for all of the girls who were able to compete, and I'm happy for Megan that she was able to take the spot in the tournament and come out victorious. That's an incredible accomplishment she should be extremely proud of. But yeah, I'm still really upset, and it really sucks that I didn't get to be in that tournament. And I'm not sure if I'll ever get over it. So that's where we're at.
Until you win next year.
Yeah, next year I'm coming for it. We'll see.
I'm sure if you won next year, you'd feel much better about this entire conversation later on.
Maybe not, though, because really, like, one of the things that I really wanted to do is that would have been like the last day of my rookie year, of my first year in wrestling. And I just thought that would have been the coolest way to end the rookie year in wrestling, would be winning that tournament and just cementing myself alongside people like Deonna Purrazzo and Tessa Blanchard and Quinn McKay, right? And just like I said, to have that opportunity just taken away from me after all of that hard work really did not sit well with me. And I've done a lot of thinking in my time off. And I definitely think when I get back to the ring, I'm going to be a little bit more of an aggressive good witch and take what's mine.
Fair enough. Fair enough on that. And I'm looking forward to seeing that. And so obviously there are 2 more promotions I want to talk about. Backing out of, Super 8, Camp Leapfrog, as much as I love those. And one of them is GCW. And I know, again, I don't want to talk too much about Ring Crew, but that's sort of how you came into GCW. Obviously, you do a lot of stuff with the Ring Crew. And so what is that like? Because Ring Crew is also very important. I think people don't understand from a wrestling standpoint that, your ring announcer is important. Your commentating team is important. Promoters are important. People who just produce flyers for a show, people who are social media managers are very important, and then obviously the people who set up the rings, set up the chairs, set up the plunder, for lack of a better word, very important. And so what is that like? Because as you stated, I mean, you've gotten opportunities by being part of the ring crew, but it really does make a show seem like it's operating seamlessly.
Well, here's the thing. So when you do ring crew at a smaller indie, it's like everybody gets there, everybody sets the ring up, put some chairs down, watch the show, and just tear the shit all down. Everybody goes home fat and happy.
At a GCW event, it's completely the opposite.
There's a lot of moving parts. You do work your ass off. It's not hang out and watch the show time. You're going to be busy from the time you get there at 9 a.m. to whatever ungodly hour you leave at night. There's getting that ring in to whatever venue that you're in that day, because they're all different. Getting it set up in time for the performers to run through their stuff.
Making sure it's safe.
Yes, setting chairs. When I first started doing ring crew at GCW, like we were maybe selling 200 seats. And some of those were standing room, and like at the last show we put down probably 600 chairs, and that's not including the people that were standing. So just the growth, right? Like you need more bodies. It's a very hard day. You got to drag all those chairs out, like put them all together. Like when it was the pandemic, we had to put them in pods. They had to all be socially distanced. So that's a whole thing in its own right. And then just like getting the locker room set up, getting merch tables set up, like getting people in, running the door, putting wristbands on. You have to have people doing security. You have to have people like running.
I'll give you a crazy thing that happened. There was a GCW event, I think, where they didn't have dodgeballs, or maybe it was an IWTV event where they were going to have a dodgeball match and they didn't have dodgeballs. So somebody from that show had to go to basically Walmart and get dodgeballs.
Yeah, go find some dodgeballs. So yeah, and then you have whatever errands pop up throughout the day, like making sure there's water for the talent, making sure there's like stuff for the deathmatch guys to clean themselves up, making sure there's stuff for the weapons to be made. So like there's
make sure your promoter actually eats, because some promoters, if you don't force them to eat, won't eat.
Oh yeah, honestly, like eating has never really been but it's just trying to make sure like going to be ready by the time you open doors. And it's not just, it's not just Brett, it's not just me, it's like Big Vin, man. He is like the powerhouse of ring crew there. Like he gets shit done. He gets that ring up, he gets all the weapons made, like he makes sure everything goes safe. Like he is like the messiah of the ring crew there. He's great. And then just having like Tommy and Gene there to build weapons that have been on the scene for years and years at this point, making sure that's done safely. Like the entire production staff, like everybody, all Dana and Ashley who do our merch, they're incredible. Like, Terrence and Brophy and anybody who helps me at the door get the fans in safely, right? Like all of these people like come together to make sure this show goes off without a hitch. So it's yeah, and then there's like cleanup between the matches. Like you're not just sitting watching the show, like you're working during the show when you're there. So it's a very eye-opening experience for a lot of people, especially if like you come there to do ring crew and you've never done it before. Like you're gonna work. It's gonna be hard, but it's worth it because I put my time in there, and I was rewarded with a match at Fight Forever against Holly Dead. So that was really fun to have, and to have everything come full circle.
I was on Alley Cat's Real Hot Girl shit.
Yeah, that show was great. It was the first ever women's GCW show.
And so a lot of fun stuff. Obviously, Alley Cat I love Alley Cat. I've seen Alley Cat go from basically a cat to where she is now.
You mean Alley Catch? She's no longer a cat, my friend.
Fair enough. I stand corrected. And so, obviously, what was that like facing Holodead, though? Because obviously, Holodead's been doing this shit forever.
I deal with a lot of stuff, a lot of spooky stuff, a lot of supernatural stuff. I had no idea what to do with Holodead. She is a force in her own right. I did what I could. I put my best foot forward. I came up shorthanded, but it was a great experience to have. And I felt so honored. And, it was whenever you work for something, it's just a good feeling, right? Like someone can hand you a match somewhere and it's great. But when you've put the time and effort in to get that match, and then you walk through the curtain and you get to be in the ring, and like everybody who's there is cheering for you and they're happy for you, and you feel like all of the effort that you've put in, like has finally paid off. Like to me, win or lose the match, that's the best feeling. You always appreciate
I know the feeling
1,000 times more when it's something that you've worked hard for.
I know the feeling with interviews. There's a short list of interviews that I've legitly earned, and nobody was cheering for it, but people have seen it and were like, yeah, you clearly put in the effort and you paid a lot of dues to get something. So I know the exact. I know it's not exactly the same because I would love for people to clap for me. But I digress right there. And then the other major promotion
that match where I'm making my entrance and I'm just standing in the ring and like I'm doing my witch pose. I'm on my knees doing my witch pose and like I'm looking up and like I'm just actually looking up into the awning and I just see all of my friends and my family just like happy for me. Like that is such a that's like such a good feeling and I'm just so glad I have a photo of that moment because that was like one of my favorite moments in wrestling so far was to have that moment.
So and then the other major promotion I got to wrestle for was Beyond. And you've done a bunch of stuff for Beyond, but I want to start with, I guess, the first one, which is against Masha Slamovich. And Masha's been on. And Masha is a hidden talent. And she's killing it right now.
Your ass. The biggest mistake I made in wrestling Masha was underestimating the lengths she would go to kick my ass. So
she is scary good, and she understands how to lose well. I'll put it that way. I think Kimberly learned that lesson, and a few other people have learned that lesson. And obviously, this was cool because this was part of Beyond's signature series, where they I think did 5 or 6. I think they did 5. Events, and then this was sort of all pre-taped, and it was very, very cool as I guess, Band-Aid till things got better. And so what was it like being on a Beyond show, being in the signature series, and a lot of people were watching because this was the final between Matt Makowski and Chris Dickinson, right? I think it was on that main event card, and really cool stuff going on. And so what was like, first time being in Beyond?
That was very nerve-wracking. Beyond is a massive stage.
A million people were watching, right? As Cindy Bacabella would say.
Yeah, not that GCW is not a massive stage, because it is, but Beyond is a very massive stage in its own right. They have
it's Beyond and GCW are the top 2 indie promotions.
Yeah, they hands down are. But Beyond has a massive audience. They have a massive audience on IWTV. They have a massive audience on YouTube. Lots of people are watching. So even though there was nobody there at those tables, knew that there were going to be a ton of eyes on it. Beyond it's like a pinnacle company. Like it's a feeder. People get signed from Beyond all the time. It can make you or break you. So it was very, very nerve-wracking for me. And having to wrestle Masha was a very tall order because it's like, oh my God, I'm new. Oh my God, this is Beyond. Oh God, Masha's gonna eat me alive.
Coming out of Johnny Rodz. And Johnny Rodz was definitely being thrown in that match.
Yeah. But you do the best you can, and I like to think that I held my own. I did not come out victorious against Masha. She managed to catch me to submission at the end very quickly that I did not see coming. But I like to think I held my own and that I performed well, and it was a good experience. And just to be able to perform on that stage with that level of production and that level of exposure in front of those people and bring my gimmick to that audience and just bring them something different that they've never had before was just such a great opportunity as well. So.
And even going further, because obviously, you're new in wrestling, as I stated. And one of the things is that even just having the learning experience of, being on a big stage and being in a big audience, because wrestling right now is not anymore just the audience that's there. It's also, where it's streaming to or where it's going to be on demand to, and understanding that, because that's a big shift that has happened in the last 3-4 years. And really, I think COVID has pushed that further, and it's very important. My entire business model with this is that it's not live. Right now we're obviously streaming live, but it's the on-demand aspect. And I do very well in my podcast because I know where to put it to get it in front of eyes. And I find that, obviously Beyond does very well live, but I would imagine they do even better, on demand because everybody has crazy schedules in their life.
Yeah, I know massive on YouTube. Like you could look that up and see it on YouTube. Their audience is incredible. So just being able to reach their audience was just such a great opportunity. And I feel so privileged to have it extended to me. And really just that someone thought that I was good enough and I deserved to be there. Like that made me feel good, you know? Because like there's a lot, especially as a performer, there's a lot of times where you doubt yourself and you doubt your ability and sense of belonging and where you stand on the test.
Every day.
And to have an opportunity like that afforded to you reinforces that, okay, somebody somewhere sees something in me, so it's all going to be all right at the end of the day. And it just, like I said, I'm just so glad I got to have that experience. It was a huge point of personal growth for me to be able to be there and to share some elite level performers like Matt Mikowski and Chris Dickinson and Wheeler Yuta and Tony Deppen and Trisha Dora and Jordan Oliver and all these people who are just absolutely crushing it right now on the indies, right? So so eternally grateful for it.
And then this sort of led into something very cool as well, because Beyond has a sister company, Women's Wrestling Revolution, WWR, and obviously, this is sort of the other side to Beyond. This is very much focusing on women's wrestling, and you had 2 bouts with Little Mean Kathleen. And so what was it like facing her and having, victories exchanged between the two of you?
Honestly, she moves so quick. She has so much energy. You can't contain it. It's all over the place. It's like this chaotic energy that will just overtake you if you're not on your toes for it, So wrestling her was great because I had not wrestled an opponent like her before. All of my opponents up until that date had been more brawler style people, and to have to work with somebody or work against somebody who is very fast and light on their feet and jumps around and can't be held down or contained was a huge a new challenge for me, right? Like I had to figure out how I was going to adapt my style to come out victorious. And I did not come out victorious in the first match with her, but I did come out victorious in my second match with her because I was able to bring a nice little jar of witchy rocks and place a salt circle around the ring to contain her energy to a manageable level. So that way, when I wrestled her, I could ground her and come out victorious. And just, we always talk about storytelling and character development, and like she got the upper hand on me the first time because like her energy was too strong for my magic to contain. But when I went back to the drawing board, I came up with a solution to that problem, and I was able to tell that story to the audience. And one of the things that I think is really great about being WWR is getting that opportunity to tell those stories to the audience and help develop my character beyond just having these one-off matches with the occasional little magic spot, to add some depth and to like kind of peel back some of the layers to Kaia McKenna and share those with the audience.
And then even continuing to develop your character, your match with Riley Shepard is one of those intense matches. And obviously Riley is doing very well. Riley's sort of a draw in WWR and around and a lot of other promotions. And what was this like getting to face her? Because obviously I'm a strong believer that iron sharpens iron. And this is almost that position in a lot of ways.
Definitely one of where it was a really good matchup. We're both on a similar wavelength in how we wrestle. So it was a true tit for tat. I'm not going to say clinic, that might be a stretch, but it was a very tit for tat, like one-upping each other, seeing what each of us brought to the table. One of the things that was really interesting was when I brought my small little sword pendant to the ring and I touched it to hers. And then I was able to foresee that drop kick coming in the middle of the match due to the scrying ability of that sword. So I was able to brush that drop kick off and gain a little bit of momentum going into the end of that match, which was a pivotal moment for me because I was down and out at that point, and just being able to call upon that magic and help me gain the upper hand in that one sense was awesome.
You're bringing me back to my MTG days. So it's not good. It's not good, especially with who I know.
Great.
Oh, so bad. Scrying too. You get to move 2 cards at the bottom of your deck.
Scrying. Is there something funny about it?
You're just bringing back memories of
I mean, it's a very serious thing. It's something that I really believe in and that I do, and that I was able to bring it to the ring. It's incredible. It's a form of divination. So
I'm so sorry. It's just I could just imagine. It's just phenomenal. Just phenomenal. And obviously I love just the idea of just putting the two of you in the ring. And I would love to see another match. I think a lot of people want to. Because it is
together. Because she's like a warrior. She's the gladiator of the geeks, and I'm like a mage to an extent, right? Like I do magic, I'm a witch. So that would be a fun little D&D style tag team. Could kick some
That could
major.
be fun too. That could be fun too. And obviously, I just like seeing good matches, and I like seeing good wrestling. I like actually like seeing people who belong in the ring and have styles that work together nicely, complement.
On your vibe, you're like, okay, we're gonna do something really magical tonight,
And I think and what I like about WWR is that I find that it definitely is not as intense as Beyond, and that things don't move as quickly, and there's a little bit more breathing room in matches. And Beyond is runs on a very, very fast-paced schedule. I find WWR sort of eases up a little bit on the gas and gives a little breathing room. And it's kind of nice when a card has a little bit of breathing room. And look, Beyond runs great. Don't get me wrong when I say this, but it's kind of nice to let wrestlers wrestle.
Well, and it's also good, and this extends to any promotion, right? Whether it be Beyond or GCW or whatever. Wrestling is the ultimate variety show. You need all the parts for it to be successful. Like you need your singles matches, you need your brawls, you need your house fights, you need your lucha matches, you need your tag matches, your trios, you need your women's matches, you need your hardcore matches, you need your death matches. You need
a championship match sometimes.
You need a championship match. You need everything. And I think that the best way to do that is to give everybody a little bit of everything and not just give them like one or two pieces of the puzzle or the pie. So I think that that's what makes WWR so great is like there's tag matches, there's singles matches, there's all sorts of games that are at play and all sorts of characters that are telling all sorts of stories. And once again, I think sometimes in the quest to display athletic prowess, we forget about telling stories. So I'm really glad that WWR is able to put some light on important stories.
Yeah, I agree. And obviously, we're hoping you're back at that,
I should be back my return date as of right now, bar any more stairs jumping out and attacking me. Let's hope that doesn't happen.
Those things have been known to kill people.
Yeah, I feel very lucky that my injury was not actually worse. People fought on the stairs and really, I really, really hurt myself, but people like really, really hurt themselves falling on stairs. So I feel lucky that I was able to get away relatively unscathed and with an injury that's manageable and that I can rehab with some hard work. So definitely.
Yeah. And so obviously I'm just going to say stairs are not my friends. Neither are escalators. I have a problem with heights going up. I can go down fine. I don't go upstairs well because falling upstairs is not fun.
Oh yeah, one of the bars I worked at when I was in college had a staircase that like people were fine going down, but they would fall up on the stairs all the time. Like, and I never understood it. I guess like maybe one of the steps was just slightly taller than the other and it threw them off or something. But there was definitely this one spot where people would just face plant all the time.
So obviously you know the DMV area.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously you've been in DC, and then for anybody who's been in DC, there are escalators in DC that are monster escalators.
Oh, pro ones? Yeah, they're pretty big.
So when you look down, you look like you're going vertically down.
I've never paid that much attention going down an escalator.
No. It is so long. You're going down like 3 stories of a building, so that when you're going down 3 stories, you're on the escalator for like 6 to 7 minutes. And this is like a roller coaster ride like type escalator. Sometimes you're on for like 10 minutes. And so
in some of the casinos in Atlantic City have some pretty wild, crazy escalators that are unsettling to some people. So I guess I could understand that. I don't like heights, but like escalators.
So going down is hard. Going up is worse. because you're moving so freaking slow that you're like you're like 5 minutes in and you're in the middle of the escalator. You're like, what's going on? And then it's just like mind-boggling because it's so massive. And you're like, if this thing breaks, I have to walk up legitly like half a building full of stairs. And so that's why I take the elevator.
Okay.
So this is why I don't take stairs anymore. And because
I don't take stairs because I just don't like walking upstairs. I'm not lazy. I'm actually very active, and I go to the gym 5 times a week and whatnot. But like, I hate stairs so much. I hate stairs so much. I dislike them with a passion. I lived in an apartment where I had to drag everything up and down the stairs, like laundry, groceries, like, and that just did me in on stairs. I hate stairs. I don't ever want to. No, I don't want to be anywhere where I have to walk up massive amounts.
I know the feeling, and so I just don't do it, and I avoid it. And
A lot of people in wrestling are big into doing the stair machine in the gym, and it's like, no, I will find something else to do. I hate the stair stepper. I like went on a kick last summer where I was like, I'm gonna try this because everybody in wrestling's like, oh, the stairs the best thing for cardio. Stairs are the best thing for cardio. And I was just like, no, I can't do this. I hate walking upstairs. I'm out of breath. My feet are too big for the steps. Now I'm angry and I'm irritated. Like, it was just not good. I like rowing. I love the rower. I love the echo bike. I love stuff like that, but stairs. No
I
stairs.
like swimming, and that's about it.
Oh, you do? Okay. Swimming is really good, like recovery cardio, actually. Like if you're having like a day where you're not going to the gym, but you still move, it's really good, like active recovery for your muscles to do a little bit of swimming.
I like swimming, and I like my Snicker dumbbell routine.
There you
So having said that, obviously, I do want to back out of wrestling slightly, and I do want to ask you actually sort of a controversial question. And obviously, COVID is kicking up. Things are getting very, very weird in the world. I know a bunch of people who have been vaccinated who have COVID, and I know them very personally. And obviously, with COVID kicking up and a lot of stuff going on, and wrestling shows sort of running, and obviously, I don't know if you know, but Ring of Honor, Death Before Dishonor, just moved out of Florida back to Philly because of the COVID cases kicking up as of, I think, either yesterday or like 6 hours ago. And so where do you think wrestling is going with everything that's going on with this Delta variant and COVID and obviously all these promotions in the Northeast and, well, also down in Florida and a variety of other places, because it is getting crazy now again, and it's getting complicated. And obviously I'm a fan. I'm obviously, sort of talking to a bunch of wrestlers, but I don't know what you view it as a wrestler.
I think,
going.
We should continue to wrestle for as long as it's safe. And if there's ever a point where it's not safe for us or the public to have wrestling events, then we might have to stop having them again. And that kind of stinks because I don't think anybody wants to quote unquote backpedal. But I also think that the safety of us, safety of public health in general is bigger than any wrestling show. And that's just my opinion. But, I would like to think that I know we had people, you had to wear a mask at the Camp Leapfrog show we had for Abby's 21st birthday, and fans were extremely receptive to that rule. Talent had to be vaccinated or COVID tested. Everybody was extremely compliant. So there's a willingness within the wrestling community between the fans and the wrestlers for everyone to work together and try to keep this boat going as long as possible. But, if it gets to the point where it's really out of control and the safest thing to do is just not have events for another couple of weeks or a month, I would be all for that, because to me, being able to wrestle another day is important than getting that one last show. Yeah. Please go get vaccinated, please, so we can keep wrestling.
Because I'm from the world, and the reason why I ask is that obviously I'm in the anime comic world, and I live in Connecticut, and so I'm not that far from New York City. And Anime NYC basically just said, hey, you're going to need a vaccination card, and you're going to have to wear masks. And I'm not too sure if it's in September or November when New York Comic Con's coming out in October. And I'm just sort of saying to myself, I'm sort of curious what you think about wrestling, is that, there's a good chance, and I would say it's a 50-50 chance that something like New York Comic Con is going to be canceled because it's almost like 100,000 people. And, well, if this thing keeps kicking up and new cases keep breaking out at a certain point, it's going to be an issue. So where do you think things like that, and what do you even think some adjustments are going to be made to wrestling even going forward beyond COVID? Because obviously I think we've entered an era where changes have to ensue as far as, safety protocols, and even after we get past COVID and this thing is long dead in the water, hopefully sooner rather than later, what do you think is going to change in wrestling as far as, safety and I guess hygiene, for lack of a better word?
I don't see.
It's a weird question, I know.
Yeah, it is a weird question because once a lot of the restrictions were lifted, people just generally resumed life as usual. And especially at wrestling shows, like there was no more pod seating or social distancing and seating or mask mandates. And
I mean, it could very well be that we're just going to go back to normal and everything's fine. I mean, I don't know.
I think that's hopefully the most likely situation is things just kind of go back to normal and people are a little bit more aware of washing their hands, right? But I'm all for whatever's the most safe route at this point. And if that means we have to wear masks, like, okay, let's wear our masks. Let's just take care of each other as a community. Let's not give people a hard time over it either. I did see, interestingly enough, that WWE's shows in New York and their shows at the Garden, they're requiring a vaccination card. And, honestly, if the situation demands for that, then good for them for wanting to take public health at the forefront over access to a wrestling event. You can't really get mad at them for that. They're not making people do anything. They're just putting in a protocol that they think is going to keep a lot of people safe. So
fair enough. Fair enough. So obviously we've been talking for a while, and I know that you're on social media. I know you're on Twitter. Obviously, I know you got a Big Cartel merch store. I don't know if you have an Instagram where people can follow you. I don't know if you got, Snapchat, Instagram, TikTok. It's a new cool thing, guys. Everybody's got a TikTok, You're in my age range. I'm not going to say what your age is unless you want to say it, but I'm not going to. But you're in my age range, and you're more of a peer than somebody who's like 20, But obviously, I have a TikTok. I don't use my TikTok all that often, but where can people find you, support you, check you out? Obviously, where are you going to be wrestling or commentating or have some element in a show and all that stuff? So where can people go and bother you essentially on the internet?
I have Twitter and Instagram. The handle is at Kaia MCK, KAIAMCK. I do not have Facebook. I do not have TikTok. I do not have Snapchat. If you find something,
then you're not one of the cool kids. That's fine.
Yeah, that's totally fine by me, honestly. I spend a lot of time during my day in front of a computer. So when I'm not at work, I like to not be in front of screens and give my eyes and my brain a break. But I do have Twitter and Instagram. Please follow me there. I do have an online store at KaiaMcKenna.bigcartel.com. And you can buy 8x10s. I have stickers. I have enamel pins. I have t-shirts. I just got these new little stickers with pugs on them that are pretty cool that are up there. That's all I got. But that's all you really need in today's world, Come hang out with me. Stickers. I do a Twitter space, the Witching Hour, once or twice a week, depending on how my schedule affords it. Sometimes we talk about astrological climate, its influence in wrestling, or events that may happen throughout the week. And then sometimes we just talk about wrestling, and then other times it's just a free-for-all. But I thought it would be a really nice way to kind of connect with some of my fans during the pandemic, where maybe not everybody can necessarily get out and be safe. So if you see that happening, please jump in. That's all I got for you.
So obviously I've been saying this, and I continue to say it. I said it all last year, 90 interviews last year, over 110 so far this year, trying to get to 170, 180. This is just the path here. And one of the things that I've been saying is you have to support indie. And what that means is obviously buying people's merch. So if somebody has a t-shirt, stickers, 8x10s, magnets, whatever they got, obviously.
I do have some new pug t-shirts coming this upcoming week. They'll either be here this week or next week. So they'll be up at my Big Cartel.
So obviously you have to support.
They're tie-dye. They're really fun.
So as I was saying, you have to support indie, and the first and foremost way to do that is by buying merch, because it goes a long way. It is, especially in the middle of COVID when wrestlers aren't wrestling as much, it helps to subsidize, their positions, and really helps to, push them over, especially when they're not getting as many bookings. And even when they are getting bookings, it's
Or,
helpful.
you know, when you're rehabbing an injury and you're having to pay for physical therapy, because that's not cheap. So
I know all about
that's where most of my merch funds have gone since my injury. Is anybody who's supported me in the recent weeks, I've taken that money and I've used it to help heal my shoulder. I thought that would be a very good use of the support money.
And so, and then even going further off of that, also going to see wrestlers at shows. That's a big deal too. Actually going to shows that wrestlers are on, because that's important. Actually cheering or booing for them, depending on if they're a face or a heel or your preference. You know, obviously that's a big deal, and supporting wrestlers by actually going to shows, especially if you're in those areas. And then even going further into this, you know, obviously following people on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, wherever their stuff is, because it matters. And obviously engaging, if, you know, you can't make it out to American Ron or how great that you are, but you are on Twitter and you're watching, tweet about it, because it goes a long way when you're tweeting.
It really does. Any kind of support. I mean, honestly, it's the best thing any of you all can give us.
So that goes a long way too, and following on Instagram and Twitter, and also liking posts and retweeting posts. You know, it's super important in today's age, because it actually lets other people know what you're doing, and people comment, and it helps the algorithms tremendously. Also, just buy me a coffee, because I am broken. Every dollar helps this show, so I'm going to just throw my thing in there, but also share this interview around as well, because that goes a long way too. And shares matter tremendously. So on that note, obviously there's a lot of stuff. Go support wrestling is a big one, and I'm going to give you the final word.
Yes, always go support wrestling. Support wrestlers. Support us on social media. Support us in person. Get your vaccination so you can continue to support us in person and keep our industry alive. Take care of yourself out there, guys. And like I said, you can always reach any kind of support you show us is always appreciated, or at least I always appreciate it. I love just seeing like what people tweet at me and like what people tag me in, and like I love fan art, I love fan videos, and I like memes. Like I just love all of this like lighthearted engagement that we get off of our fans these days. And it's just really nice, because there was a time where, like I said, wrestlers weren't as accessible as they are today. You know, gosh, thank God at 14 I couldn't follow my favorite wrestlers. Like maybe that was a blessing, right? But but yeah, the fact that we are so out there and can interact with fans on such a big stage these days is really, really cool. So I always appreciate any support I get from everybody in any capacity.
Well, I don't think I could have said it any better.
And be nice to each other. That's my other parting statement. It's just be nice. Go out of your way to say something really nice to somebody and make their day. There's too much negativity in this world, so add a little bit of positivity.
Well, I don't think I could have said that any better myself. But on that note, I think that is a wrap.